Now, in the support of the Black Lives Matter movement, some famous people have been opening up about their experiences with racism. Great British Bake Off winner Nadia Hussein was told black hands don't sell jewellery after applying for a job as a hand model as a teenager. X Factor star Fleur East described how she was told she wouldn't sell records if she wore her hair naturally. And Mystique singer Sabrina Washington revealed that music industry bosses told her she was good enough to sing, but she'd never go on the front of a magazine as black women don't sell them. Nadia, Fleur and Sabrina have shared their stories of blatant racism. But Kelly, this is all something that is all too familiar, isn't it?
Yeah, unfortunately, yes. I mean, when I was in the band, we were, we just had like a #1 record. We were doing really well. We were like the biggest selling UK R&B girl band of that time. And we were told by a magazine that we weren't allowed to be on the front cover. And my management company at the time pushed and said, why? Why not? These are the stats. They've done 1.5 million in terms of album sales. They've just, had been nominated for Best British Band in terms of the Brit Awards. So what's the reason? And they basically came back and said at the time that black people don't sell magazines, because we were a predominantly black band at that time. Louise was still in the band, and so we were predominantly black. And they said that black people don't sell magazines. So it is something that I stand in solidarity with Sabrina, because it's something that was definitely innate at the time.
And what about now? Do you think it's changed?
Yeah, unfortunately, not so much. I just recently featured in a magazine, and I was on page 100 and something, like literally the page before the back. And yes, it was a double-page spread, granted, but on the front cover was another celebrity who was white. And I did my own research. I was like, let me just have a look and see if they've actually ever had a black woman on the front cover. I couldn't find one. So unfortunately, no, it still happens today. And it is systemic. And it's such a shame that people like the previous editor, for example, of Vogue, who has been quite sort of, I guess, out front in saying that's what she felt, that black people didn't sell magazines. But now the current one is having a completely different standpoint, and putting NHS workers on the front cover. For me, it's just a fallacy. I'm looking at figures here from the Nielsen report. 152. This is dollars, granted, but 152 million in terms of sales for black women, in terms of buying products and fragrances and makeup, things like that. So why would you not? They're supposed to be forefront leaders. Vogue magazine. They're supposed to be trendsetters. They're supposed to be starting a conversation and making a huge impact on the fashion industry, which then implements in terms of the music industry and flows through culturally and socially what we discuss. So if you're at the forefront and you're leaders, why are you not challenging the narrative that is so old school? Bring yourselves up to date.
Well, that's why I suppose the appointment of Edward Enninful, who's now editor, he's been doing that very much so since he first started, hasn't he? And I mean, it's also, I think you're absolutely right in terms of representations on covers and at the forefront, and on television and in acting, but also it's so important behind the scenes, isn't it? The actual editorial staff, or the production staff behind theatre productions, etc. Because, and it was something that Beyonce said. So she, September 2018, she was in Vogue, and she said, if people in powerful positions continue to hire and cast only people who look like them, sound like them, come from the same neighbourhoods they grew up in, they will never have a greater understanding of experiences that are different from their own. And so they'll end up just hiring the same models, the same, curating the same art, casting the same actors over and over again, and we will all lose. And for me, that is the essence, really, of what we're talking about.
Absolutely. It needs to change from the top down, like you said, the editors, the photographers, the directors, they all need to change, because if they do, then the influence will change, because you'll look at something and you'll look at it with fresh eyes and go, actually, we need to rejig that, and look at, reflecting other members of society, because everybody buys, everybody has that buying power. So that should be reflected within the magazines and on the front cover.
But it makes it makes complete common sense and commercial sense. I mean, if those people that were saying black women don't sell magazines, well, why would the black women be buying those magazines if they were completely and utterly unrepresented in them? So now Edward Enninful is putting black cover stars on. It's flying off the shelves in a much bigger way than it ever did. But you know how I've been talking every time I've been on this show about how this is a time when we're questioning every belief structure that we've had and thinking, is it right and is it wrong? Should I have thought that? And I was just thinking, and if I have excluded someone, I apologise, but I've been in this industry for 42 years now, and I don't remember ever being directed in television by a black director or in theatre by a black director. I mean, I'm always aware of there's only 7% of women directors, but I have actually worked, you know, we need much more. But then, you know, the amount of photographs we do, which plays into this, the amount of over the years of, you know, the celebrity photographers and stuff, some of whom are our friends. I don't think I've ever done a photo shoot with a black photographer. But then again, if they're not putting black women on the cover, why would that editorial team employ a black photographer?
Where do you think...
I've never thought about it, though, and it shames me that I haven't.
Kelle, where do you think this comes from? Do you think it just comes from laziness at the end of the day? It might not necessarily be inherent racism. It's just thoughtlessness and laziness, sticking with the same people that you sort of know and you know they do well because you've put them out there before.
I think it comes from a bit of both. I can't call everybody racist because they'll have their reasons for doing certain things, but there is a huge amount of inherent racism because, for example, you know, you've got to look at things like Black Panther, which sold 1.34 billion, and that's to date. So it's like, it's such a contradiction, isn't it? It's like there is such a heavyweight commercial power in the black pound, as we'll call it, just for today. But then the hypocrisy of not giving the platform in the first place is such a contradiction for me. But yes, I do think some of it stems from racism, yes, sadly, and some of it is it's what you already know. But like Jane said, you're not going to change what you're used to unless you look outside of the box that you sit in, that you're confined to. Look outside of that box. There are other people, other cultures, other nationalities that are interesting too, and that buy your products.
How important do you think it is? Obviously, you've got a gorgeous young girl. For young girls of colour to see themselves represented, and we're not just talking magazines here, we're talking the music industry, the entertainment industry. Do you make a point of seeking out so that your little girl can feel represented? Absolutely. On another occasion,
oh, that's somebody knocking at my door. On another occasion, live Kelly. You'll know if I took you round Kaori's room, you know, her Cindy dolls are black. She's got a black Ken. When I wash her hair, I always tell her very much, this is my character hair, Kaori, and your hair is beautiful. And I make sure her room, her surroundings are surrounded by beautiful things that empower her as a black girl growing up, because otherwise she would definitely become, I think, frustrated. Should I go deal with the door?
Yeah. It might be Edward Enninful. Exactly. We've got to go to a break anyway, so you go and answer the door.
Be back in a sec, girl.
Okay. All right.